Welcome to the In My Opinion Show with Ronald Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. To view, go to our very own channel. In capital letters, type in RBRIMO to view our extensive catalog of shows. I want to introduce my talented co-host, Mr. Henry Hatter.
Hello, Ron, and congratulations, Denise. I believe that you have a granddaughter graduating from Howard University.
Oh, yes.
Your life is nothing but a success story with your kids. We all appreciate you. You make us look good and raise the IQ of this platform.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And welcome to you, Denise.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Henry.
And welcome to our millions of viewers worldwide. Let's talk about Nigerian schoolgirls. The abduction of more than 200 girls from a school dormitory in Nigeria has understandably shaken the world's consciousness. This reprehensible attack by a Muslim extremist offends our collective sensibilities at so many levels, not only putting the lives of these innocent victims in jeopardy, but denying them the best hope for the future and their education. Sadly, it is perhaps only the scale of the abduction that has merited such widespread attention, but the reality is that young girls in many parts of the world have their futures cut short by keeping them from their schooling, and for a variety of reasons. Abductions are the most horrific. Young girls taken forcibly from their families often are compelled to enter the seedy and dangerous world of sex trafficking, a business that some estimate is upwards of $20 billion annually. Approximately 10 million children each year are subjected to various forms of sexual exploitation in the commercial sex industry. In some parts of the world, as many as 1 in 3 sex workers are between 12 and 17 years of age. There is no evidence that the Boko Haram abductions, this is a terrorist group in Nigeria, were connected to sex trafficking. By all accounts, these girls were removed from their school for religious reasons by extremists to object to the education of girls. The episode is reminiscent of Malala Yousafzai, the now 16-year-old courageous Pakistani girl who was shot in the head by the Taliban to keep her from her studies. Many religious extremists, it would seem, are more threatened by an educated populace than armed enemies. Denise, let's go to you first. What's your thoughts on this abduction of these Nigerian schoolgirls first?
Well, absolutely. I think what you read kind of speaks to the seriousness of this thing. Number one, of all accounts that I've heard so far, the main reason is an education denial. These young girls were both Muslim and Christian girls who were attending school and being taken out of that because of a belief system that feels that women don't have a place in the educational system, which is just unfathomable. Particularly when you look around the world, it's women are being educated on some level, and I don't understand why. But again, this is a belief system that's foreign to me, that they would have this thought that women should not be educated. My belief, of course, is that, mothers are the first teachers. So quite naturally, if these young women, eventually marry or whatever the case may be, they're going to be responsible for educating their future generations. So it would be incumbent upon them to help them to become as educated as they possibly could, because education is a way out of poverty, is a way out of conditions that are less than. So, families, I think about the families of these young girls who, are frantic. I can't even think about having a child of mine just taken and not know their whereabouts or their conditions. Now, reports have indicated that they do know their whereabouts to some degree, but then they're not doing anything. So, this is a political situation. We're not probably as knowledgeable about all of it as we should be, so I can't really speak more than what I'm saying right now about the extent of what's happening here. But I just know that as a parent, a grandparent, I would be just out of my mind concerned about what is happening to that child. These are young girls, and each day that they're away, it's just unfortunate for the families and for these young girls. What is the condition? Are they being treated fairly? How are they being treated? Just so many questions, more than any answers that I could provide for you today.
And also what I don't understand is how the Taliban and these Muslim extremists are right. They're practicing the Quran and so forth. I mean, that's why I guess I have an issue with with religion. But I'll leave religion out of this right now. But to abduct these young girls. All right, and all accounts in the news media that they've been threatened to sell them off and to sell these young ladies off and marry them, and some of them are 12 and 13 and 14 years old. It's just it's mind-boggling and very frustrating and Mr. Hatter, what is your thoughts?
Ron, this is a great subject. I thought it was going to be very boring at first. But after I looked into it and thought about it, I think it's a great subject. The group that we're referring to, the incident that we're referring to, was when I think a group called Boko Haram, a Muslim group, abducted 276 girls, I believe, and who, as they were opposed to the westernization of these girls. And that seems like it's an isolated event in the world, but it has nothing to do with sexual, a violation of girls' rights or anything like that. And I'm glad that you did point that out, that this is a completely different discussion than discussions of girls being abducted for sexual reasons.
But see, we don't really know that at this point. Okay, there's a lot of F's in here. Okay, but if this group,
but it does not speak to it.
Well, but if this terrorist group, abducted these young ladies, and from the news accounts, they're talking about selling them, and and marrying them off. All right, there's a mixed bag here. Okay, now. Which is still unfolding probably as we speak. And what I don't understand is that I think the shift is changing in a way. We're talking about education on one side, and then they're talking about on the other side. All right, this terrorist group, Boko Haram, they've been fighting over Nigeria. All right, with the legitimate government of President Goodluck Jonathan, and the news accounts are saying that in order to get the girls back, then you release, hundreds of thousands of our members. All right, so now they need to get the shit straight.
But and I'm glad that Denise did surface this argument that. We don't know a lot about this. We don't have enough substance to really make any good judgments that could result in some kind of an action strategy.
Exactly.
But if we put boots on the ground, that could be dangerous.
Yes.
Because, like you said, Ron, there are terrorist groups like Jihad and like Kurds and all of those that are involved. And then you got a legitimate government. But you can't tell which one has the most power. And there are 50% of people on one side or the other. And the United States could go in and say we put boots on the ground and choose the wrong side. And those could potentially be our allies. Right. So we have to be careful about that. We wouldn't know how to negotiate ourselves out with that kind of condition. So I would be inclined to make some philosophical judgments, but never an action judgment in this case.
I think that the United Nations would be the best place.
Yes, that would be
the best forum to operate in this circumstance, because the United States is not the police of the planet. Okay, we cannot go in and authorize and dictate to other, countries how they're supposed to operate. Okay, because we don't have all the information. And to go in to try to be helpful, as Henry has alluded to, we may go in and do more harm than good. So I think we really have to be very, very diplomatic on how we approach it. But my thinking is going through the United Nations and having other countries sound the alarm. You know, this can happen here, this can happen other places, and we need to have some type of approach that's going to be comprehensive in terms of making sure that we can minimize this kind of thing, because we don't know what the outcome is going to be.
And we
really don't.
And we all also have to realize, and I'm sure we can all attest to this, is that the UN is so slow in what they do. All right, it could be months, it could be years before any of these girls are found, if they are found. Period. Okay, and also too, this situation is just not in Nigeria. We have the same situations right here in the city that we do our show from. All right, Flint, as well as many other areas of America. Sex slave and sex slave and sex slave, and I don't have the answer.
But yes,
please don't entangle that.
Yeah, because right now this was a political move. This was about, again, from the accounts that we've gotten in terms of stopping the westernization, if you will, and that westernization is symbolic in terms of being educated.
Free speech.
Yeah. So that's part of it. And then freeing political prisoners, or prisoners that are opposed to the central government there. So that's another issue. So all of this stuff is like a quagmire. We don't really understand all of the dynamics. It's just as citizens of this country, we are emotionally charged by it because we think of our own families, we think of our own children. You send your child off to school, you think about Sandy Hook, you think about all these different situations where a person dresses their kid up, sends them off to school, and then they don't see him anymore. Mm-hmm. That is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying. We would not even imagine that unless you've actually gone through that whole episode. So, we can have a discussion about this, but it's going to be circuitous in terms of we will not have an answer here. We won't have an answer because there's too many dynamics that go into play in this
but
situation.
we've had a discussion close to this in the past, in which we were, particularly when the Republicans were in the White House, we just couldn't understand why we became engaged in Iraq. And we should have learned some lessons from that. From Korea, Vietnam, because all of those were controversial. If we've learned anything, then we should be cautious about how we proceed. We don't have the resources anymore. We have the people, but we don't have the resources to engage in a worldwide action plan to liberate a few people.
Absolutely.
And I would be cautious about that.
And I wanted to mention too, Ron, because you mentioned about what was going on here in Flint, so we don't want to mix apples and oranges here, because here in Flint we were dealing strictly with sex trafficking. That was what that was about. Okay, it didn't have any political connotations to it or anything like that. It was human trafficking. Okay, and so in this regard, we're not sure if that's going to, over there is Nigerian. We don't know if it's going to lead to that or not. It's assumed because they're females, but I mean, a bunch of boys could be picked up and the same thing could happen. So we don't know. There's just too many variables that we just don't have enough information on.
But the thing is you got to set this stuff out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
To get there is a connection. All right, whether it's Flint, Nigeria, or China, or anywhere else in the world. Okay, because what impacts our city impacts probably most every other city. But to add to this article, for a great many young girls, their education is curtailed by what Americans would find an unlikely source. Their parents. In many developing countries, young girls are removed from school not only because their parents perceive that they cannot afford even public schools comes with a modest fee, but also to put them to work. either around the house or for modest wages. Just as common, fathers literally sell their young daughters in marriage, often to men many times their age. UNICEF estimates that some 400 million women between the ages of 20 and 49 were married before their 18th birthday. An estimated 1 in 3 girls in developing countries is married before adulthood, and 1 in 9 before they are 15. In some countries, Niger, Chad, and Bangladesh, for example, the percentage of adolescent brides is upwards of 75%. Many of these marriages are forced or arranged, with some brides marrying even before their teens. Now, that's ridiculous.
It's a cultural thing.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's foreign to us. Because we know how we do things here in these United States, and we have our own set of morals and values and codes, okay? But worldwide, they do not see from our perspective, okay? We may not like what they do, but you have to understand there are differences, okay? And yes, we wouldn't want to see a child bride. We don't want to see arranged marriages, and we don't allow those things, at least in our system. We have it in place where those things are protected. Kids are protected, okay? But in other countries, they don't have those same types of protection. And in fact, they support it. As you say, their parents, because of economics, they cannot maybe afford to feed their family. So they have to farm their children off so that it becomes less of a burden to the family. It's like I said, these are things that hurt you because you're saying, how could this be? But in other cultures, this is a norm, okay? Our norm is not their norm, So even though we don't like it, we have to understand that, it's just different, And unless we have a universal set of codes and morals and things like that goes around the world, it's going to be that way. It's just going to be that way. And so, what do you do with that? You can, have these organizations that maybe can fight for change in those countries and see if their governments will support those kind of changes. But what can we do here? We have to maintain our own structure here and make sure that that's solid. Because, we have, as you say, we got trafficking going on here. We have, as a matter of fact, we have people who leave this country to go to other countries because they can get younger girls and boys for those kind of activities. Wrong. We know it's wrong. Our laws protect the kids here, so they go where the kids aren't protected. Oh, this is a whole nother can of worms you've done open up here now.
But what I don't understand is where this cultural stuff came from. I mean, I know it exists, but how in the world could a parent sell their daughter, since we're talking about girls, at 8 and 9 years old to an old man? That's beyond, and I agree with you, cultural differences and so forth, but who in the hell brought up this cultural stuff, you know what I mean? In terms of selling your children.
But Ron, it's not so difficult to understand. Poverty has existed in the world for hundreds of thousands, for thousands of years, okay?
Since the beginning.
And so when people are depressed, what do? They look around for a commodity that has value to them and that will bring money into the household. And you can read a lot about cultures that do that and have done it. And maybe in this country we've done it too early in the American West. When they were opening up the West, there were few white women that were available to the trappers and explorers and people who pushed the boundaries of West further and further. They were only exposed to Buffalo Soldiers, women, and to American Indians. So, but they wanted people that looked like them, that act like they had the same kind of culture. So they, when these young girls travel across the Mississippi, those kind of things, it was likely to be those kind of things that would occur. As a matter of fact, I read something that just last week, that we had episodes of that kind of behavior in this country. But it was what was necessary. It was a necessity to maintaining the culture, maintaining the numbers, and what people wanted and needed. The Greeks and Romans did the same thing. So it's not so, and a lot of it was legitimized by religion. they wrote that into religious script, and it became the law of the land and the practice of the order.
And so much for religion. So much for religion, I guess, again. To me, these people are nothing more than pedophiles. That's my opinion, all right?
Okay.
Are pedophiles.
That word wasn't invented in those days.
Well, we're in the 21st century, so, you know, but, and, you know, and you see this just the other day, you know, I'm going to get back on topic, but just the other day I was reading in the paper, all right, where here we go again, you know, chief of police, all right, the feds did a roundup, 70, 100 people around the country, all right. Police chief gets knocked off. Priest gets knocked off. A rabbi gets knocked off. All right. I mean, this has got to stop.
Explain knocked off. I'm not sure I'm following.
Yeah.
Caught.
Okay.
Oh,
caught.
they get caught in
Okay.
illicit behavior.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And was this illicit behavior with minors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you have to be
Well,
real
that's
clear.
legal.
And every time you turn around, okay, somebody is getting.
But we got a
arrested.
justice system that provides for that. Anybody caught doing it, they are brought under the long arm of the law and treated.
Right.
Well, let's hope so, but a lot of them.
No.
All you have to do is go on your computer, all right, and I guarantee you, in your neighborhood out there, you're going to see a bunch of little red dots. All right, I don't care where you live in the United States. Sex offender, type that in. That's all you have to type in. Sex offender, and you'll be amazed. All right, probably in a lot of cases, it's going to be your next door neighbor. So you folks out there listening, just type in sex offender and see what comes up.
But Ron, my last comment here is that we live among human beings. Human beings have flaws. They're character flaws.
Henry, these are animals.
You can educate them. You can train them. You can accept them into a religion, and they will still violate expectations by society. And we have to learn to live with that. The only thing that we're here now is to minimize the impact on how they affect society. We can't stop it.
Exactly.
But we've got to educate the people out there, all right? That's how you hopefully minimize, you know, these situations. You got to educate the people.
Well, and I think that's what, you know, this show is doing, and other vehicles are making it available, the information about how to protect young persons from, you know, being snatched and that kind of thing. You do what you can, but a person who has a mindset to try to do some harm to a child, they'll figure out a way. If that's their intent, they'll figure it out. So it's up to parents and the community to do what they can, because again, going back to this article and about the stories that I've heard so far, the government, from what I understood, had some information, some inkling that this was going to occur. Now, if that be true, then it would have been incumbent upon them to have the forces that they needed to help protect those girls as they were going to and from school. You understand? So their due diligence was lacking.
Exactly.
And so therefore this situation appears to have occurred based on the information that I have. So there's too much, like I said, there's too much of responsibility that needs to be, you know, laid out here. In the United States, we have our own issues. We have our own problems, and we need to address our problems before we start reaching out to other lands trying to help them solve theirs.
But we've already reached out. Even the president's wife has raised concern about, you know, these ladies over in Nigeria, you know, and hopefully they'll send one of them things over there, and what do you call them?
Envoys.
Droids? No, what are those things? I know what you're talking about, those little floating...
Oh,
Yeah.
drones.
Drones.
Oh, yeah, that's what you were talking about.
And take out these people. Some reports said that, you know, the Nigerian army had 4 hours heads up, and some say they had 4 days heads up. Some say they had 4 hours heads up. All right, and some general gets on there and says that we know where they're at. Well, doggone it, if you know where they're at, all right, you got the services of the mighty United States over there in terms of intelligence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, what's the problem? You know, what's the problem? Go in there and get these girls, okay? Hopefully they're not sold off as promised by the leader of this Boko Haram such outfit, all right? To me, he's a hoodlum.
But
Okay?
Ron,
Anybody like him is a hoodlum, all right? Anybody like him is a pedophile, in my opinion.
Ron,
Okay.
but we have to be careful. When people are under scrutiny like that, we have to make sure that someone commits the overact before you go in and blast away and kill people without evidence that this is certain things are going to happen and people are going to be killed. We don't want to kill people needlessly and based upon just BS.
Well, I understand that. I'm not suggesting, you know, that any American troops, you know, go over there. But with the intelligence that's being sent over there, you know, and the help that's being, given to assist the Nigerian government, you know what I mean, we should be able to come to some kind of understanding. This has been a great conversation. Again, our time has ran out, but I want to thank our millions of viewers worldwide and my very informed co-host, Mr. Henry Hatter, Mrs. Denise Smith-Allen, and you, the public. Until next time, this is Ronald Robinson and friends saying, stay focused.